AITA for kicking my in-laws out right after giving birth? I gave birth to my daughter 3 weeks ago, and apparently I'm now the villain of the family because I asked my in-laws to leave my house after they completely ignored every boundary I set. My husband thinks I overreacted. His parents are telling everyone I'm unstable from hormones. My own mother says I could have handled it more politely, but honestly, I was exhausted, in pain, bleeding through adult diapers, trying to learn how to breastfeed, and they acted like they were on vacation at a resort instead of visiting someone who had just pushed a human being out of her body. So here's what happened. During my pregnancy, my husband and I agreed on one thing very early: no visitors for at least the first week after birth. I'm a private person, and I already knew recovery would be rough. I didn't want people hovering over me while I was trying to heal and bond with the baby. His parents hated that idea immediately. My MIL kept saying things like, "Back in my day, family helped each other," and "You'll want experienced people around." My FIL mostly stayed quiet, but would throw in comments like, "Well, we'll see how you feel when the baby actually arrives." I stayed firm. My husband said he supported me. Well, labor didn't exactly go smoothly. I was in labor for 19 hours, ended up needing an emergency C-section, and lost a lot more blood than expected. Recovery was brutal. I could barely stand up without feeling dizzy, and breastfeeding was a nightmare. My daughter had trouble latching, so I was crying basically every few hours from frustration and exhaustion. On day 4 postpartum, my husband sat next to me and said, "My parents really want to help. They promise they won't stay long." I said no, very clearly. I said I wasn't ready. I felt disgusting. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time, and I didn't want guests. He got quiet after that, and I thought that was the end of it. The next morning, I woke up to voices downstairs. His parents had arrived with suitcases. Not overnight bags, full-sized suitcases. I genuinely thought I was hallucinating from sleep deprivation. My MIL came upstairs smiling and said, "Surprise! We decided you clearly need help." I looked at my husband, expecting him to say something. Instead, he goes, "Let's just try this for a couple days." I started crying immediately. Not dramatic yelling, just exhausted, defeated crying. And somehow I ended up apologizing because everyone got awkward. For the first few hours, I tried convincing myself maybe it would actually help. It did not. My MIL criticized everything. I was holding the baby too much. The nursery was too cold. Breastfeeding wasn't necessary if it stressed me out. She even took my daughter out of my arms once while I was trying to soothe her because apparently I was making the baby anxious. Meanwhile, my FIL sat in the living room blasting TV at full volume while I was desperately trying to sleep between feedings. Neither of them cooked. Neither cleaned. The help they offered mostly involved asking to hold the baby while I hosted them. At one point, I shuffled downstairs at 3 a.m. because the baby was screaming, my incision felt like it was on fire, and I realized there were no clean bottles left because nobody had washed anything. I found my MIL in the kitchen holding my daughter while taking selfies. Selfies. With the flash on. I just stood there staring at her because I didn't even have the energy to react properly. Then she said, "Oh good, you're awake. She's hungry," and handed me the baby like a waitress passing over an order. The next day was the breaking point. I finally managed to fall asleep after being awake nearly 30 hours straight. I told everyone very clearly, "Please do not wake me unless it's an emergency." About an hour later, my MIL burst into the bedroom holding the baby and loudly saying, "She needs her mother." Apparently my daughter had been crying for less than 5 minutes. I snapped. I sat up and said, "Get out." My MIL laughed like I was joking. So I said it again. "Get out of my room. Actually, no, get out of my house." Silence. My FIL came upstairs asking what happened. My husband kept saying, "Babe, calm down," which somehow made me even angrier. I started crying again and basically unloaded everything I'd been holding in for days. I said they weren't helping. They were treating me like an incubator instead of a person. They ignored every boundary I set. I said I felt ambushed in my own home during the most vulnerable moment of my life. My MIL got offended and said we came out of love, and I replied, "Love would have listened when I said no." That shut everyone up. Then my FIL muttered something about me being disrespectful, and my husband suggested maybe everyone should take a breather. I said no. I wanted them gone that day. My MIL started crying. My husband looked horrified. My FIL called me cruel. But eventually they packed up and left. The second the front door closed, I felt relief so intense I almost collapsed. I slept for 6 uninterrupted hours while my husband took care of the baby downstairs. It was the first real sleep I'd had since giving birth. But afterward, the guilt campaign began. My husband said I embarrassed him and could have handled it with more grace. His parents told extended family that I, quote, threw them out for trying to help. Now random relatives are messaging me saying I should apologize because grandparents were excited, and, quote, new mothers shouldn't isolate themselves. The thing is, if they had actually helped, I probably would have welcomed them eventually. But they didn't come to support me. They came to access the baby. And maybe this sounds harsh, but I genuinely think people forget that mothers are human beings. After childbirth, everyone asks about the baby, everyone wants photos, everyone wants cuddles. Meanwhile, the mother is sitting there in pain, leaking milk, bleeding, sleep-deprived, emotionally wrecked, and somehow still expected to play hostess while recovering from one of the biggest medical events of her life. What hurts most is my husband betraying my trust. I can forgive excited grandparents. I'm struggling to forgive the person who looked me in the eyes, agreed to my boundaries, then invited them over anyway while I was physically unable to defend myself. He says he was trying to keep the peace, but the peace for who? Certainly not for me. Now things are tense. His parents haven't visited since, and my husband keeps hinting that I should reach out first because they're hurt. Honestly, I think I'm the one who's hurt. So AITA,